Hello. Um, uh, Thank you very much for coming. My name is Miriam Dvali, and I would like to introduce curators of the exhibition, Wander Between Words. Ms. Elizabeth Dutz, curator from Albertina Museum, and chief curator Bice Kuriga. I'm happy to announce about the exhibition which will be held at Albertina Museum in Vienna. From October 26 till January 27, 2019. I work at Georgian National Museum. I represent Georgian National Museum, and I'm happy to be here with my colleagues. So I would like to say a little bit about the artist itself, Niko Pirosmanashvili, as he's one of the most important Georgian artist. He was born in 1862 in the eastern part of Georgia, village Mirzani. He was self-taught artist. And he is extraordinary as he never traveled outside of Georgia, and he created art which is very national, original, extraordinary, special, and it's at the same time very general, I would say. So this project exhibition between Wander Between Words is very important because the date 2018 is the date of the anniversary after his death, 100th anniversary after his death. We are really honored to work with Albertina Museum, Georgian National Museum, and I think it's a starting point to rediscover this great artist, Niko Pirosmanashvili, for the wider public. I would like to ask first question to the curator of Albertina Museum, how they came up with the idea of the exhibition of Niko Pirosmanashvili.
Well, a few years ago, we started preparing our exhibition from Chagall to Malevich, as the Albertina Museum has one of the main focuses is the Russian avant-garde. And we came across Pirosmani and were thinking about including him in this exhibition which took place in 2016. But then we decided to give him a special solo show this year for his 100th anniversary of his death, because he seemed to us so special. He's very influential for the Russian avant-garde, and we wanted to show people this artist because he's so influential but totally unknown in the Western world. So this was the starting point of preparing this exhibition, and we were looking for partners. We found it in Infinite Art Foundation, who are preparing an oeuvre catalogue, and the Georgian National Museum, and of course the curator Bice Kuriga was willing to cooperate with us. Thank you very much. And well, this was the beginning of the journey to Niko Pirosmani.
Yeah. Thank you. And it's interesting that I would like to ask Bice how she came aware of Niko Pirosmanashvili at the beginning. It's interesting story.
Yes, I attended a congress of art critics in 1988. And it was in the sign of Glasnost. It was held in the Soviet Union, in Tbilisi, and at this occasion I went to the museum and discovered that it was full of these paintings, fascinating, wonderful paintings of for me, completely unknown painter, and his name is Niko Pirosmani. And I asked my colleagues if they knew him, and there was a younger critic from the DDR, from the Eastern Germany, and he said, no, in East Europe he's really very famous, and he's considered to be the painter of the people's soul. And there is a catalogue raisonné which came out in 1983, a huge catalogue raisonné with a bit more than 200 numbers, and it's considered that it's only 10% of what he really produced, because the rest is probably lost. And we have to say he was living the life of a vagabond, and he painted these paintings for restaurants, tavernas, bars, which at the time were also very often in cellars. And he got food, and he got often the right to sleep with the animals, probably. So I was completely fascinated by this story, and went back to Zurich, where I lived, and went to the communist bookshop and found the Oeuvre catalogue, and was able in 1995 to organize my first exhibition with Piero Osmani at the Kunsthaus Zurich. And that's why I was now asked again to curate this show.
And I would like to read a tiny part from one of the famous Georgian artists, also David Kakabadze, who wrote his book in 1926 in Paris. It was published in Georgian language, and he talks about Nicopiros Osmanashvili in his book. The living face of the new painting is Nicopiros Osmanashvili. His art is connected with Georgian reality. His aim was never to reproduce any of the methods of painting, but to pour into artistic form the life that he suffered. Piros Osmanashvili had no intention of producing either a national or traditional art. His art is extremely national and at the same time general, common to all mankind. The way of Nicopiros Osmanashvili is a brilliant example of new art. So he is one of the most important figures. So after him started the modern era in Georgian painting. The young generations come, and he had influenced a lot of them. So I would like to ask you about, to say a little bit about the conception of the exhibition, and later to talk a little bit about the book.
Well, there will be 30 paintings, 29 to be exact, 29 paintings shown. And as you can tell, it's no, okay. It's rural life, but it's also a lot of figures depicted in a frontal manner, and there is always this black cloth as a painting ground. And Piero Osmani used this, what was to cover chariots, and it was easy to roll, to carry, and he developed this wonderful style using very bright colors, which he had a wonderful technique to let the black from the background be also the contour of an image, and use it also as shadow. So his painting style is very refined. Also, he was an autodidact, a self-taught painter who tried a lot to work in different professions, but it was not able to be long enough in a regular profession. And yes, the concept is, I think, today to show, of course, the reception history to show why what happened. He is part of Western art history because the Russian avant-garde also is part of the narrative of Western art history. But what happened after where he was shown 1913 at the famous avant-garde exhibition in Moscow with Larionov, Goncharova, Malevich, there were, as we know, many political turmoils, changes, and his work got also put as we in under disclosure, and was then brought back, but used for a different narrative than the avant-garde narrative. And I think all this is today very interesting to look at, and at the same time, why are we still, to ask ourselves, why are we still fascinated by, why do these paintings talk to us in such a direct way? And that was, I think, the concept behind that. We know that it's important to go back to art history and find an artist who has been forgotten for many reasons, and at the same time to discover that there is a lot to recognize in our way we look at paintings and how we react to his paintings.
Yes, it's true. There are many facets that are fascinating us with this artist, and I think one of it is that he, as a Georgian painter, for one time he touched the top of the artist world. In this time at the avant-gardists in Moscow, he was. He had 4 paintings presented in this famous exhibition Mishén with Larionov, Goncharova, Chagall, and suddenly he was recognized as a very interesting and fascinating painter. He has never left Tbilisi, but he was. Afterwards, he was invited with the Guild of the Georgian Painters, and they were talking about making him an exhibition, but they did not do it, and they refused it, and so it was very difficult for him to accept this decision. And then within the World War I, came, and so an exhibition that was planned for Paris did not work out too, so suddenly he was forgotten.
I would like to mention the exhibition is organized by Albertina Museum with the partnership of Infinite Art Foundation, Georgian National Museum, and also Ministry of Education, Science, Culture. It's part of Georgia. And I hope people will perceive this exhibition as we hope, with. And I would also ask you to talk a little bit about the artists who will also take part at this exhibition, about famous architect Tadeu Ando and the concept of his homage to Pir Osmanashvili.
Yes, there is also a homage, yes. Tadeu Ando, the famous architect, who is also a self-taught architect. He was a truck driver and a box fighter before he became architect. And I think that's why he felt it was possible for him to do an homage, a table. He designed a 7-meter long table, and it will at the same time also be like a gravestone, a mobile, ambulant gravestone, because Pirosmani was put in a anonymous...
We don't know where he's buried, and that's also the main idea of this homage which Tadeo Ando made for this exhibition.
Yes, but yes, I think it's wonderful to always see that artists, living contemporary artists who were born later, so much later, also as artists I showed already in '95, have always had a very spontaneous interest in being associated with Pirosmani. And in '95, my interest was in a generation, a younger generation, who went back to imagery, to strong imagery, which was somehow in the early 20th century with abstraction, and then after the Second World War with also conceptual art, minimalism was avoided somehow and came back around in the 80s, let's say. And so in my first exhibition, I was interested to show Nico Pirosmani like a meteorite who has fallen from the sky together with contemporary art. Because I also tried to free him a bit from cliches of naive art, of primitivism, which are etiquettes which are always a little bit paternalistic, are diminutives, and I just wanted to show him on the same eye level as contemporary art. And with to come back to Tadao Ando, I think this is now also beautiful that will be this strong flickering object, because it will be in plexiglass with blue roses inside and mirrors. So I imagine it will have a strong an homage, which is again something happening on eye level with the artist Nico Pirosmani.
And I would add also that there will be some other artists who will make homages, like Yoshitomo Nara, Adrian Gainey, George Baselitz, and also Georgian famous artist Andro Vecco will take part in this exhibition, which is also very interesting. And I don't know, I think if you would like to add something.
Yes, for us in the Albertina Museum, it was very interesting to know about that among artists, Pirosmani was rather well known, because one day we were talking with Georg Baselitz, and he said that, he had already done a drawing in his new series of double portraits with Hokusai and unknown artists. So he has already done a double portrait, Hokusai and Pirosmani. And so he will lend this drawing to us, and it will be shown. And we decided to make this exhibition parallel to our Claude Monet exhibition, which is running now, and there's a lot of people, about 4,000 or 5,000 each day, that come to visit it. So I think this will be a forum for Pirosmani too, and many, many thousands of people will see his wonderful works.
To add, you mentioned Hokusai. Hokusai is one of those famous woodcut printers who influenced very much the French avant-garde and very importantly Vincent van Gogh. So I would like to present also after the Albertina Museum, I would like to present Nico Pirosmani's works also at the Fondation Vincent van Gogh in Arles. And yes, Hokusai influenced the avant-garde at the time because they were looking for a different non-Western way to have an image composition. If you look at Hokusai and Hiroshige, all these woodcutters, they distorted, they had point of views which was made the picture very interesting, had interesting tension in the imagery. And I think with Pirosmani, there is maybe and also a simplicity of the image, which is also in these woodcuts, a simplicity of the image. You know that he painted for very dark places, people were drinking, and the image had to glow from far away. And this now is a film of Wes Anderson's studio in London, also an homage to Nico Pirosmani. Yes, this painting had to reach the people, and I think this is also today an important aspect, or an aspect which at least interests me very much, is he was not answering the cliche of the naive artist who is at home, not thinking about the public or other art, but he is the opposite. He was working for a public who were exactly telling him also what they wanted. He had a repertoire, and I see him more like a pop musician, a pop singer who every evening is somewhere and looks a bit around and feels the atmosphere and gives back what people want, and is in a wonderful union with the public. And I think this is also very inspiring today, to have an artist looking at imagery which, yes, has somehow hits a common, a collective dream, is idealizing, is completely idealizing communal life. At the same time, you know that he probably had a hard life. He had not really experienced the harmony that he is depicting. And at the same time, it's not kitsch, it's not sweet. How does that happen? I mean, that is what I was asking myself all the time, and which is still like a little miracle, that you look at these paintings, you know the story behind, and they're glowing and they're positive and they're not kitsch.
I think that's it. I would like to thank also Hatice Kantz, the publishing house, who printed this beautiful catalog. I think you will look through, enjoy, and have it in your homes. So I don't know if you have. We can finish. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.